Welcome to Edison Open House Global Healthcare Forum 2022. In this session, we're going to showcase the work of French artificial heart maker Carmat. And with me is their CEO, Stéphane Pierre. Stéphane, hello. How nice to have you with us again.
Hi, hello, Vivian.
Now, we know about Carmat, but tell the audience a bit more about where it's come from and what its vision is.
Yeah, well, Carmat was an old idea which came 30 years ago to Alain Carpentier. So at the time already he saw a huge prevalence and incidence of advanced heart failure, and he knew it would have grown quicker and quicker because of the population aging older and older. So he had the idea to start to develop a device, and our vision, the vision of Carmat, is really to become the first primary alternative to heart transplant. Unfortunately, the number of patients needing a heart transplant is growing faster and faster every year, and there is a lack of donor. And that's the reason why there is a need for a solution such as Carmat.
Now, this is called a physiologic heart replacement therapy. So explain to me what that is and why it differs from other artificial hearts, of which there are a few.
Yeah, what triggered the idea of Carmat or behind Carmat was really the heart developed by Jarvik in the US, and that's a product which still exists, which is called Syncardia. And Alain Carpentier was the inventor of biological or bioprosthesis for surgical valves. Was using at the time pericardium, bovine pericardium, and his philosophy was to make sure that we could implant a product which was highly biocompatible and working like a human heart. So his idea since then was really to develop a device working on mimicking a human heart. And it's what we achieved to do now.
So essentially, this is a bridge to transplant, although some people will have it presumably for quite some time.
Yeah, so I think the challenge when you work in medical device, and it's what we're facing right now, it's really to have a product which is easy to manufacture and reliable. So obviously, before you start thinking long term, you need to start short term. So it's what we started with. So we started with bridge-to-transplant. So the goal today, because you lack of donors, is to maximize the chance of success of our transplant. Today across the world, you only have 6,000 transplants which are performed every year. So obviously, you want to make sure that a high percent of these hearts coming from donors will be successful as a transplant. So what you're trying to do, you need to make sure that the patients who will undergo this operation will survive and will do well. And the only way to make it happen is to make sure they are in a good shape. And that's the reason why you usually put these patients under a device for support for an amount of time which can vary between 1 month to 6, 7, 8 months or more. So that's called bridge-to-transplant. And once the recipients can get a heart, an organ which is, I would say, compatible to the individual, then he will undergo the surgery. But in between, he undergoes the surgery with an organ and a human organ, and when he was recovered, he will be supported with a device which is in charge of making him better to undergo the surgery.
So there's potentially a very large market here. I mean, as you say, not only are there many more older people who will get heart failure, but also because of our success in treating a heart attack and other heart problems in midlife, you're getting an epidemic of heart failure as those people age.
Yeah, you're right. So today, across the world, the first cause of death is heart failure. And in the heart failure pool of patients, you have more and more advanced heart failure. The reason for this is, as you said earlier, so now we are moving people from myocardial infarction or vascular issues and valvular issues to heart failure, because we treat better and better patients with stents and valves. So now we are moving to heart failure. And within heart failure, you have several stages, obviously, of the disease. But more and more you have advanced heart failure. So people are getting to the end of the cycle of the disease. on this for a simple reason. Even heart failure, we treat better and better. I think over the last 20 years, we've been making a lot of progress, both on drug side and medical device side. So obviously, patients are getting later and later to treatment, and that's the reason why the slice of patients needing biventricular support is growing exponentially.
Now, you've had a particularly exciting up and down year in 2021. Just explain what you've been doing this year, particularly these very exciting first commercial implants.
Yeah, I think this year for us was a year of transition. So we got the CE mark in 2020, and obviously manufacturing a heart such as a Carmat is quite a lengthy thing, and moving from prototyping to high-scale manufacturing is quite an important work. It's always for medical device usually, but it's even more complex when it comes to Carmat. So this year has been used to really review all the processes, ramp up the manufacturing. Obviously, along the road, we saw a lot of things to improve, which we did, and quality issues as well. So that's the usual, I would say, step when you move from prototype to high-scale manufacturing. So this year of 2021 was very important to Carmat to make sure we were able to face 2022 with high-quality standard manufacturing site, and we could eventually as well face the demand, which we believe will be quite important.
And you had a commercial implant in Europe, and you had your first commercial implant in the US. What's the next steps in terms of those trials?
Yeah, so now, as I said, we had a very strong start. Then we had to pause very shortly to address quality issues, as it happened all the time. So we are very confident that 2022 will be a very important year for Carmat. We are training a lot of centers. There is a lot of requests. We've been receiving a lot of patients to be studied. So now the name of the game for Carmat is to make sure that we have adequate manufacturing capacity to make sure we can face the demand, which we believe will be quite important, as I said.
So presuming you get enough patients recruited, and it sounds as though there's no shortage of patients whatsoever, and you get the quality issues sorted out, how long before you get any kind of approvals, particularly in the US market?
Well, I think the US approval, so we've been very conservative because we know it's the best way to go, especially to get confidence from our investors. So for us, the horizon for the US approval is kind of end of 2024 or 2025. So we believe it will take 4 years-ish, something like this. And so I think we need to take the right time. We know we'll learn a lot. We need to make sure that we address all the issues once they come our way. That's a usual process. So that's why we've been quite conservative. So we believe that the US should be around 2025.
Meanwhile, what are the milestones that investors should be looking out for over the next year?
Yeah, I think the most important thing will be the pace for growth. So we had a strong start, we had to pause. So now we are preparing very strong for 2022. As I said, we're trying more than 20 centers commercially. There is a strong interest and a strong demand. I'm hopeful that we are able to start very quick next year, and we're able to really accompany the growth at a good pace.
There's no doubt there's extraordinary potential for a device like this, and I wish you every success in it, mostly on behalf of patients, because patients have such need of a device like this. It's been such a pleasure talking to you again, Stéphane Piard. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vivian.